What if I told you that seeing too much can actually destroy you? Sounds dramatic, right? But Carl Jung hinted at a dangerous truth. People who are overly perceptive often end up carrying a burden that slowly eats them alive. They don't just live in the world, they live under its skin, constantly absorbing hidden motives, unspoken pain, and the shadows others are too blind to notice. At first, it feels like a gift, until it starts tearing you apart from the inside out. If you're drawn to Jungian psychology and crave practical Carl Jung insights, you're in the right place. In this video, we're going to unpack why the most perceptive minds often suffer the deepest destruction. You'll see how sharp awareness can spiral into overthinking, how sensitivity turns into loneliness, and why Jung warned that unchecked perception could consume the ego itself. And more importantly, you'll discover how to flip this curse into wisdom. But before we dive deep, do me a quick favor. If you've ever felt too aware for your own good, or even if you're just curious about the hidden truths of human psychology, hit the like button right now. It tells YouTube this video is worth sharing. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell, so you'll never miss these insights that can truly shift the way you see yourself and others. Stay with me until the end, because I'll share a 3-step checklist Jung believed could save overly perceptive people from collapse. And trust me, you don't want to miss that. Have you ever felt like you notice things other people simply gloss over? A subtle shift in someone's tone, the faint hesitation in their body language, or the unspoken tension that hangs in the air. These are the details overly perceptive people catch. At first glance, it seems like a superpower. You move through the world with radar constantly scanning, picking up what others ignore. But here's the catch. That same radar never turns off, and that's where the trouble begins. The curse is hidden inside the gift. While others can walk away from situations unbothered, you carry fragments of everything you perceive. Someone else's stress becomes yours. A casual lie cuts you deeper than it should. You don't just see reality, you feel it in your bones. And that's exhausting. Jung believed that heightened perception often drags people too close to the unconscious, the murky territory filled with shadows we're not meant to dwell in for too long. Think about it at work. In a meeting, you instantly pick up on tension between colleagues that no one else even notices. To you, it's obvious. To them, it's invisible. That disconnect leaves you carrying stress that isn't even yours. Most people enjoy a layer of ignorance that shields them from the chaos underneath. But overly perceptive people? They don't get that luxury. Their gift is sharp, but it slices inward too. The truth is, this gift and curse are inseparable. You can't shut one side off without losing the other. And that's the paradox Jung points to. The sharper your perception, the greater your vulnerability to destruction. Which leads us to a question. Why does Jung warn so strongly about the shadow self lurking beneath perception? Jung's idea of the shadow isn't just some dark corner of the psyche. It's the whole side of human nature that society tells us to repress. When you're highly perceptive, you don't just sense your own shadow. You sense everyone else's too. Imagine walking into a room and, instead of just greeting people, you immediately pick up on envy, resentment, or hidden fear. You're not just hearing words, you're staring at the ghosts behind them. No, you don't need night vision goggles to see it. It's simply how your mind works. That's where it gets heavy. Constant exposure to shadows means constant confrontation with truths most people avoid. Jung warned that when we see too much darkness, it starts to seep into us. You might begin to mistake the shadow for the whole person, or worse, for yourself. You end up burdened not just by your own hidden wounds, but by the collective weight of humanity's unspoken fears. It's a kind of psychological destruction no one asks for. And here's the cruel part. You can't unsee it. Once you've trained your mind to notice cracks in the mask, you'll always see them. But carrying that awareness is like carrying a backpack full of rocks. It slows you down, wears you out, and makes joy harder to access. Every smile looks suspicious. Every act of kindness feels like a performance. You can end up drowning in doubt, mistrust, and endless analysis. Jung insisted that the shadow must be acknowledged but never allowed to dominate. For overly perceptive people, though, domination feels inevitable. The line between awareness and obsession is razor thin. And the moment you cross it, you don't just see reality, you get trapped by it. Which brings us straight into the spiral of overthinking. Overthinking is the silent killer of joy. When your perception is razor sharp, your mind doesn't stop at what happened. It spirals into why it happened, what it means, and what could happen next. Suddenly, a simple conversation becomes a labyrinth of hidden motives and imagined consequences. Jung would say this is the ego getting lost in the unconscious mind, trying to make sense of signals it was never built to decode fully. Imagine this. Someone cancels plans with you. For most, it's mildly disappointing. For the overly perceptive mind, it's a puzzle. Were they lying about the reason? Did you say something wrong? Is this a sign they're pulling away? The mind spins, pulling threads until it unravels the whole fabric of the relationship in your imagination. Overthinking turns every minor event into a psychological earthquake. The tragedy here is that overthinking feels productive. It feels like you're figuring it out. But in reality, you're sinking deeper into illusion. Jung's warning was clear. The unconscious isn't a place to live, only a place to visit. Too much time spent there, and you mistake shadows for reality. That's why perceptive people often destroy their peace. They confuse their interpretations with truth. This is the self-awareness struggle no one talks about. Here's a teaser. I'll share a quick, name it, time it, park it, exercise that can stop spirals in under 2 minutes. But first, let's talk about the emotional storm that follows all this overthinking. Being perceptive means being sensitive, not just intellectually but emotionally. You don't just notice tension, you absorb it. You don't just observe sadness, you feel it seep into your own skin. Jung suggested that empaths or highly sensitive individuals act almost like mirrors of the unconscious. They reflect what others suppress. But carrying that weight is brutal. Think of it like this. If you were a sponge, every drop of negativity around you soaks into your pores. By the end of the day, you're heavy, waterlogged, and drained. Other people release their emotions onto you because you're strong enough to sense them. But strength doesn't mean invincibility. Eventually, the burden cracks you from within. That's the emotional burden of sensitivity and suffering. The irony is that society praises sensitivity when it benefits others. You're such a good listener, you always understand me. But rarely does anyone ask, who carries the listener's pain? Who comforts the one who comforts everyone else? Jung believed that ignoring your own limits leads to neurosis, the slow breakdown of the psyche. And that's exactly the risk overly perceptive people face. And here's a preview. Later on, I'll give you one boundary sentence you can use today to protect your energy. But before we get there, let's look at the cost of carrying this weight, the deep, quiet loneliness it creates. There's a unique kind of loneliness that comes with high perception. It's not about lacking company, it's about lacking resonance. You see patterns, truths, and inconsistencies that others can't, and when you try to express them, you're met with blank stares or polite nods. Jung argued that individuation, becoming fully yourself, often isolates you from the collective. For the overly perceptive, that process starts early and cuts deep. It feels like speaking a language no one else understands. Conversations feel shallow, relationships feel mismatched, and you carry insights you can't unload. Over time, this disconnect pushes you toward solitude. You might even prefer being alone, because at least solitude doesn't judge your depth. But solitude, when fueled by alienation, morphs into loneliness, a sharp, quiet ache that eats away at the spirit. This is what I'd call modern loneliness. This loneliness is destructive because it whispers lies. It convinces you that you're too much, that you'll never belong, that understanding others is a curse, not a gift. And in some ways, it's right. Society tends to fear what it doesn't understand. But Jung would argue that this is also a necessary test. the point where you choose whether your perception will break you or shape you. Soon, I'll share a quick resonance ritual to test who you can truly connect with. But before that, we need to explore the inner war that makes perception so destructive: the ego versus the unconscious. Jung described the ego as the small island of consciousness floating on a vast ocean of the unconscious mind. For overly perceptive people, the waves of that ocean crash harder and more often. They sense things beyond the surface, and the ego struggles to make sense of it all. The result? A constant tug-of-war that leaves you mentally and emotionally frayed. The ego wants control. It wants clear answers, neat boxes, and certainty. But the unconscious doesn't play by those rules. It's messy, paradoxical, and filled with contradictions. The more perceptive you are, the more you notice these contradictions, not just in others, but in yourself. That recognition can be destabilizing, shaking your confidence in your own identity. Example: you might crave deep intimacy while simultaneously fearing it because you see every flaw too clearly. This is where destruction creeps in. If the ego clings too tightly to certainty, it breaks under the weight of the unconscious. If it surrenders completely, you drown in confusion and self-doubt. Jung warned that the key is balance, but balance isn't easy for those whose perception magnifies every shadow and amplifies every inconsistency. It's like walking a tightrope with the wind howling against you. And no, you don't get a safety net. And yet, within this struggle lies the seed of transformation. Because if you can hold your ground, resist the pull of extremes, and learn to navigate both ego and unconscious, perception stops being a curse. It becomes wisdom. And that wisdom is exactly where we're headed next. Here's the hopeful twist. Jung never suggested that being overly perceptive meant doom. He believed that if you face the shadow, integrate what you see, and learn to carry it without collapsing, perception can become your greatest strength. But it requires discipline, humility, and yes, boundaries. These are timeless Carl Jung insights straight from Jungian psychology. The first step is acceptance. Stop wishing you weren't perceptive. Stop trying to numb it or hide it. Accept it as part of who you are. From there, set boundaries, both mental and emotional. You don't need to analyze every glance or absorb every feeling. Choose where to focus your perception. Just because you notice something doesn't mean you have to dwell on it. The second step is integration. Jung spoke about individuation as the process of uniting conscious and unconscious. For you, that means using your insights to grow, not to spiral. Instead of overthinking, use perception to spot opportunities, to deepen authentic relationships, to cut through illusions that keep others stuck. Your gift can be a compass if you treat it as one. And here's something practical. Try the 3x3 practice. Write down 3 boundaries you need, 3 ways to integrate what you notice, and 3 relationships that deserve your depth. That's how perception transforms from curse into compass. Because wisdom comes not from seeing everything, but from knowing what to do with what you see. So here's the question. What will you do with the weight of your perception? Jung believed that the difference between destruction and transformation lies in whether you integrate what you see, or let it consume you. The overly perceptive may carry heavy shadows, but they also hold the rare potential to turn those shadows into light. That's not a curse, it's a calling. If this message struck a chord with you, don't let it stop here. Reflect on it. Journal about the moments when your awareness felt like a burden. Ask yourself, am I letting my gift control me, or am I shaping it into wisdom? Those questions alone can change the trajectory of your inner life. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. There are countless others out there who feel the same depth, who wrestle with the same struggles. That's why I'd love for you to share this video with someone you know is carrying more than they let on. It might be the lifeline they didn't even realize they needed. Before you go, make sure to hit the like button. It tells us this kind of content matters. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you'll always catch these insights as soon as they drop. And leave a comment below. Do you see your perception as a blessing, a curse, or both? Your story might just inspire the next video we create.